Galaxy S23 Ultra is here, and that means there is a new flagship in town, at least in terms of the candy bar phones. Samsung does have one more existing flagship in its foldable portfolio, and that is the Zfold 4. Today, what we're going to be doing is comparing the existing foldable flagship, the Galaxy Zfold 4, against the new candy bar flagship, the Galaxy S23 Ultra. So let's go right ahead and jump right into this in-depth comparison. So what you're going to get in both of the boxes for both of these phones is pretty similar. You're going to get your USB Type-C to C cable, your SIM ejector tool. For the S23 Ultra, you're going to get an S Pen, and for both devices, you get a quick start guide. Even though the Zfold 4 is older than the S23 Ultra, it's still the more expensive of the two. The starting price for the Fold 4 comes in at $1,799 for 256 gigabytes of storage. The next price up comes in at $1,919 for the 512 gigabyte. The last price you have here comes in at $2,159, and that is for the 1 terabyte variant of the Galaxy Zfold 4. The S23 Ultra starts at $1,199 for the 256 gigabyte, then goes up to $1,379 for the 512 gigabyte option. The last option comes in at $1,619 for the 1 terabyte. FYI, if you do happen to go for the 256 gigabyte option, Samsung does apparently make two variants of these, one with 8 gigabytes of RAM and one with 12 gigabytes of RAM. The Fold 4 comes in 4 different colors. Those colors are gray green, phantom black, beige, which is what I have here, and the Samsung.com exclusive burgundy. The S23 Ultra comes in 8 different colors. Those colors are green, phantom black, lavender, cream, and of course the Samsung.com exclusive colors, graphite, lime, sky blue, and red, which is what I have here on the table, or salmon as I like to call it. Anybody who has seen my other videos will know why I say that. You can choose any color the Fold 4 comes in if you're going to go for the 256 gigabyte or the 512 gigabyte. If you're going for the 1 terabyte, then the only color option that doesn't come in is burgundy. The burgundy color also seems to take some time to ship. The S23 Ultra is available in the 4 main colors in the 256 gigabyte option. If you go for the 512 gigabyte, then you'll have access to all of the colors, including the Samsung.com exclusive choices. The 1 terabyte will come in all color options with the exception of the red and graphite. Most of the color choices ship at the same time, but as always, you'll want to check Samsung's website to make sure shipping times are doable for you anyway. Keeping on the topic of storage, Samsung has upgraded the speed of the internal storage with the addition of UFS 4.0. What this should mean for you is that whether you're reading or writing to the internal storage, you should see an increase in the speed. This will definitely benefit any sort of data processing done on your phone and should also help speed up applications, all while drawing less power. Both devices are made with armor aluminum for the frame of their bodies to provide increased durability from drops and other things. The Fold 4 utilizes Gorilla Glass Victus Plus for its cover display and Samsung's ultra thin glass for its inner main display. The S23 Ultra utilizes the new Gorilla Glass Victus 2 for increased durability over last year's model. The front of both devices are pretty simple, with the only significant thing there being their front cameras and the fact that the Fold 4 has this little bezel on the side. The inner main display on the Fold is also pretty simple, with the most significant thing here being that crease in the middle and the under display camera, which you may or may not even be able to see right now. On the back of the Fold 4, you have Gorilla Glass Victus, plus here again, you have 3 cameras and an LED flash that all sit on this sort of silver island right here. The S23 Ultra, again on the back, has its Gorilla Glass Victus 2, and Samsung has stated that this is actually recycled glass, which is good for the environment, always up for that. You also have the 4 camera modules here, which 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this up here is your laser autofocus, and of course you have your flash. On the left side of the Fold, you have your SIM card tray and the 2 antenna breathers there, while on the S23 Ultra, you have really nothing but just 1 antenna breather. On the right side of the Fold, you have a large antenna breather, the ones that Samsung likes to put on their newer phones, your volume rocker, and your power button / fingerprint reader combo. On the S23 Ultra, you have the antenna breather at the top, your volume rocker, and your just power button. Nothing really significant about it, it's just a power button. You also have 1 more antenna breather on the bottom there, which I almost forgot to mention. On the top of the Fold 4, you have about 4 antenna breathers, a really large speaker grill, which actually does something, 3 microphones, and that's pretty much it. While on the S23 Ultra, you have that 1 antenna breather there and 1 microphone situated at the top. Finally, on the bottom of the Zfold 4, you also have 4 more antenna breathers, your USB Type-C charging port, and another large speaker grill that actually does something. On the S23 Ultra, you have 2 antenna breathers, a SIM card tray right to the right of the one over there that's like right here to the left, I guess. You have your Type-C charging port, another microphone, and this is where your S Pen will stay when it's not in use. For those of you interested in what the size comparison between these 2 devices like, here they are. So you have the Fold 4 here on the left, obviously, and then you have the S23 Ultra on the right. So as you can see, the cover screen on the Fold 4 is a little bit smaller. It's a little less taller, of course, and it's only 6.2 inches. So with the Galaxy S23 Ultra on the bottom, and then you have the Zfold 4 on the top, if this is the phone you're getting, of course you're going to get a wider display to go ahead and use. However, this is a Fold, which means the screen folds open. Of course, when it does fold open, it's a whole different ball game here. You got that 7.6 inch display versus that 6.8 inch one, and that is really where the Fold shines here. If you want to take a look at how both devices stack up on the sides, here is how they look. There is also the thickness factor, however. So right now, as you can see, my index finger is situated on the back side of the S23 Ultra, and the thickness of the Fold 4 is actually showing itself here. The Fold 4 is not impervious to any outside external sources like dust or anything like that. It has an IPX8 rating, which means it is definitely water resistant. However, it is not impervious to dust, sand, or any sort of smaller particles, while the S23 Ultra is fully IP68 certified, which means it is fully dust resistant and water resistant up to a certain point. The cover screen on the Fold 4 measures 6.2 inches. The size and the width of this display will allow you to get the job done, but it can be a bit on the smaller side for some who are used to a traditional candy bar phone. The S23 Ultra comes with a 6.8 inch display, which is probably one of the biggest and best displays you can get on any phone on the market currently. The Fold 4's main display does have an advantage over the main display on the S23 Ultra, since it measures 7.6 inches versus the 6.8 inch display on the S23 Ultra I just mentioned. Both of these devices do have the ability to use an S Pen. However, the S Pen that comes with the S23 Ultra does have the advantage in a few different ways. I talked about the first one which is the fact that it comes with the device and can be stored inside of it. But in addition to this, you also get the ability to do air actions. Air actions can be used to perform a few different tasks and actions within applications and outside of applications. The Fold 4 can technically do the same air actions. However, it does require that you purchase the S Pen Pro in order to use these air actions. And on top of that, you won't be able to store that S Pen Pro anywhere since it is so comically big. Though the Fold 4's S Pen does lack the ability to be stored inside of the device and can't do air actions without another purchase, it does have its own advantages. The first one is the fact that it is a thicker S Pen, which can provide an overall better grip for overall control. The second advantage here is the fact that you have a much bigger canvas to write on with the Fold 4 because of its 7.6-inch display. The Fold 4's choice of processor is the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, while the S23 Ultra uses the new and improved Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. I personally haven't seen much of a difference in day-to-day operations between these two processors, especially when dealing with basic apps. I do think that the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 inside of the S23 Ultra will show its power when used with applications that are more demanding. Another difference between both phones is their installed RAM. The Zfold 4 uses LPDDR5, while the S23 Ultra uses LPDDR5X, which will definitely benefit demanding applications since they can now process data much faster. The 5G speeds on both phones are just about the same. You can really get some blistering speeds if you're connected to the right tower at the right time and on the right moment. Both phones also have the same general connectivity standards, except when it comes to Bluetooth. The Fold 4 comes with Bluetooth 5.2, while the S23 Ultra gets an upgrade and goes over to Bluetooth 5.3. Samsung kind of pulled a weird move when it comes to the front cameras on the S23 Ultra. Both of these devices have 12 megapixel front-facing cameras, which is kind of weird because the S22 Ultra has a 40 megapixel front-facing camera. Of course, the Fold 4 does also have its under-display camera, but that camera is best reserved for video calling if you feel the need to have the phone opened to the main display while participating in a video call. The bread and butter on both phones is their rear cameras, and really, there's kind of not much of a contest here. Starting with the Fold 4, you have a 12 megapixel ultra wide, a 50 megapixel wide, and a 10 megapixel telephoto camera with 3 times optical zoom and digital zoom up to 30 times. The S23 Ultra comes with a 12 megapixel ultra wide, a 200 megapixel wide, which is a new camera, and 2 telephoto cameras, one with 3 times optical zoom and the other with 10 times optical zoom. Digital zoom goes up to 100 times as usual. To really show what these cameras can do, let's go ahead and move on to the samples so you can see what's what between both camera sets. So for those of you interested in how these speakers compare on both of these devices, I'm going to go ahead and play a song I have been working on for like ages. I have no idea when I'm going to finish it, but the idea here is that it is not mixed, and if you can hear all of the instruments in it, or most of the instruments in it anyway, this should give you an idea of how music that is professionally mixed would actually sound on these speakers. So let's go ahead and do that. Next up, we're going to go ahead and move on to the microphone test for both of these devices. This is a test of the microphones on the Galaxy Z Fold 4 and the ones on the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Hopefully these microphones sound very clear, crisp, because these phones are definitely not cheap. This is a test of the microphones on the Galaxy Z Fold 4 and the ones on the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Hopefully these microphones sound very clear, crisp, because these phones are definitely not cheap. The Fold 4 has a battery capacity of 4,400 milliamps, while the S23 Ultra comes with a battery capacity of 5,000 milliamps. Wired charging for the Fold 4 maxes out at 25 watts and maxes out at 45 watts for the S23 Ultra. Both devices utilize Samsung's Fast Wireless Charging 2.0 for wireless charging speeds up to 15 watts max. And both also have reverse wireless charging for both devices, which maxes out at 4.5 watts. So at this point, I am going to go ahead and move into my battery draining test. And as you can see here, both devices should be on 61% battery life, which they actually are. And as always, I'm going to use the same test I used when I was trying to test out the graphical performance, because this stresses the battery as much as possible, or at least out of the test I have. So let's go ahead and do that and leave these and come back and see what the battery life is at. So every single time I do this test, the numbers are usually in reverse, and I am not sure why. Now, both of these phones are actually at 48%. The other thing to this is that I literally today just got the One UI 5.1 update, so I'm wondering if there are any optimizations in there. But either way, this should just give you an idea of what battery life would be like on these phones. Now, of course, we got to go on to the charging tests. So from here, what I'm going to be doing is using two 25-watt chargers, and I'm going to go ahead and use my voltage cables, or my wattage cables rather, so you can see exactly what these are charging at for a little bit of a time before I just jump to what they actually get to after a certain time I'm done. So let's start with the Fold 4, because technically it does have a smaller battery, and I can't even find a charger in the dark right here. All right, so there we go. All right, got that in. So 48% there. And then we're gonna do the S23 Ultra now. And both of the chargers are in. And let's see what these are gonna be at for a couple of minutes. So as we can see right here, interestingly enough, the S23 Ultra has already gone up to 23 watts, while the Fold 4 is on 14 watts. Maybe that'll change, maybe not. Who knows? Depends on how low the battery is, I guess. But yeah, I'll leave this on for a few minutes, and then I will come back after 30 minutes and we will see where these batteries are at. All right, so I am back here, and interestingly enough, the wattages on both of these phones have kind of gone down. So the Fold is like somewhere between 9.6 and 9.9, whereas the S23 Ultra is stuck at 6.9. Interesting, but let's see where these devices are at now. Alrighty, so interestingly enough, the Fold 4 is at 87%, while the S23 Ultra is at 94%. Now, mind you, both of these were using 25-watt chargers, so it's pretty interesting. The Fold 4 also does have the smaller battery, so I would have expected it to charge a little bit faster, but I guess Samsung has made some changes to the efficiencies in charging with the S23 Ultra, so there you go. In all honesty, I really don't have much to say about the software side of things. You won't really find anything that different, with the exception of the fact that the Fold 4 pretty much still is the phone you want to go to enhance your experience of using all of your favorite apps. Things like Google Maps, email, and Microsoft Excel are just made better by the fact that you have such a large display to actually use these applications. And you can do so on phones like the Galaxy S23 Ultra, candy bar phones. However, it's just that the Fold 4, I still feel, takes things just that much farther. It's just the amount of space you get to use all of these apps cannot be beat. All right, all, so that is all I have for you on the comparison between both of these flagship devices. Of course, the Fold 4 is technically now old at that point, I guess, since the S23 Ultra's come out, so it will be interesting to see what the future holds, but I still think that both of these devices do hold their own in their own categories. So with that being said, wherever you are in the world, have a great morning, a great afternoon, a great evening, or a great night, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching as always.